Welcome to this meeting of the Dallas County Commissioners Court. We will be considering items on our official agenda. Normally, after that time, we go to our briefing agenda to consider what we call our informal work session to consider items that we'll vote on at a later time. With the indulgence of the court, I'd like to ask that we move our agenda around a little bit to allow the speakers to go a little earlier. And the reason for that is this. I am under doctor's orders to only sit in this position at any given time for approximately 1 hour. I know that many of you are here, you that are here to speak, are here to speak primarily to me as chair of the Elections Commission. I want to honor you and honor listening to you. If we're unable to get done with all of you while I can still be sitting here, we have set up an accommodation in my office so that I can hear your voice and I can even dialogue from there with the microphone. But it's my desire to honor you by looking you in the eye as you speak to us. So with that indulgence, if we could, I would appreciate if we could do our briefing agenda after the speakers. Any objections?
No, motion to suspend the agenda.
All those in favor? Aye. All right. So with that in mind, there are no resolutions this morning. We will now consider item 8, our consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We will now consider items 9 through 35. Is there a motion on the court order?
Remove court order 34. It will insert in court order 26 the name of event as presented by that committee. Then if that is acceptable, then I will move those court orders.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. And I will ask that we pull out court order 34 for discussion.
Just the,
It has been full.
just the, no, I just pulled, the only thing I pulled was 34.
Did not do 35.
And the reason, again, that I pulled 14, I know we're going to talk about that, but this court really has nothing to do with allowed to HR, but they'll speak to you.
So you're pulling, so you're making a comment on 14, are you pulling 14?
No, we just passed. No, I just told them we'll talk about it. No, I didn't pull it. Part of the issue. Now, if you want to withdraw. Okay.
Thank you. Regarding court order 34, it's become a tradition in Dallas, Texas to expect to have even-handed bipartisan elections in our county. And for most of you, as myself, that have lived in this county for a long time, we've come to just have that expectation most of our adult lives. The other day, about 2 weeks ago, we were jolted out of our comfort zone by the unexpected forced resignation of Bruce Sherbert, our longtime 35-year elections administrator. If I'd known it, if I'd seen it coming, I would have thought it. Other members of the court and certainly the public were as surprised about this as I am. Today, I am proposing a consulting contract with him, and I purposely left it very loose. I depend on our very capable county administrator, Darrell Martin, to look at this contract and to decide what the scope of services should be. But what I'm asking a vote on is a vote on the willingness of the Commissioners Court to use the expertise and the experience of Mr. Sherbert in order to best accomplish the best practices of the elections department. This is, I don't know whether he will accept this or not. As far as the cost of this, we'll have to negotiate that in the scope of services with Mr. Sherbert. But I'm asking for a vote, individual voice vote, for this, to indicate the willingness to work with Mr. Sherbert on a contract using his consulting services for the best practices. And then we can decide what that scope is and et cetera, once we talk to him and once we evaluate what it is that the elections department needs. The other reason I brought this forward is that I've gotten a deluge of emails, calls. I notice many of you are down here because you're concerned about this. And what I hear from people is they feel that they haven't been heard. I know many of you are here as speakers, and you're going to come up here and address the Commissioner's Court. And that's well and good, but traditionally, the Commissioner's Court does not have any interaction with you when you make these speeches. You have 3 minutes to state your beliefs, and whether we agree or disagree, we rarely say anything. So it's not really a two-way street. So today, I felt that since many of you have indicated that you want to know how the commissioners feel about this, you want to have some dialogue, you want to hear some sort of interaction about this issue in which you feel like the rug has been pulled out from under you in some ways, I am going to, I put this court order on, I'm going to vote for it to include a contract, not specified at this time, but a willingness to contract with Mr. Sherbert if he agrees to this, so that we can accomplish the best practices for the elections department and avail ourselves of his expertise. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second on the motion?
Are you making
Is that a motion?
And I so move.
I'll second the motion and we'll, for discussion first.
You're ready to move for discussion? I'll say, all right, it's second, it's moved for discussion. Is there any discussion?
I do, Judge. You know, there's been some dialogue as to what the actual law is on the appointment of an election administrator. I do want to sort of set that straight. First of all, the election commission is statutorily set up where the county judge, county clerk, the tax assessor, and each county chair preside on that commission. Legislatively, that is the only body that has the authority to hire an election administrator. It does not take an affirmative vote by this court. It does not take any vote by this court in order to hire an election administrator. That is strictly that commission. What does require a vote of this court is if that commission meets and then by 4/5 of the vote, they terminate that election administrator. It takes a 4/5 vote, then it takes a 3/5 vote of the court, a majority of the court, in order to support that dismissal. We didn't reach that position because of the resignation. So I just wanted to get that out there because comments have been made that this court has to vote for the new election administrator. That is totally incorrect, and I want to put that on the record. But I do have a statement, Judge, that I would like to make part of the record. I am very disappointed over how the circumstances evolved concerning Bruce and his position with Dallas County. I feel the way Bruce was treated not only harmed him personally, but it also harmed Dallas County as an organization. I can understand Bruce being surprised and hurt based on the outstanding job that he has done for over the past 30-plus years for Dallas County. Bruce was well respected across the board and maintained a reputation of fairness, honesty, and effectiveness, which is not an easy task in a position that deals with highly partisan individuals on both sides on a daily basis. His absence, in my opinion, is a real loss for the county, but more so is the message that his departure sends to the other dedicated, hardworking staff within Dallas County. It's hard to attract the best and brightest when they see how we treat those that put their heart and soul into their job, and how matter-of-factly they are done away with. Some may say, well, Bruce resigned. Well, yes, he did. He saw a handwriting on the wall and probably could have survived the election commissioner's vote, but he knew it could only be a matter of time for his character and reputation to be attacked. He certainly did not want to put himself or his family through that, and ultimately decided to resign and demonstrated once again that he is a man of character and integrity. Because he is separated from the county at this time, I just wanted to appropriately recognize him for the hard work and commitment that he's done, and I appreciate his professionalism, his dedication, and his years of service to Dallas County, and I wish him the very best in the future. Thank you.
Judge, I did ask for a voice vote.
I would like to,
Any further, and I will certainly accommodate you on the commission. Any further discussion?
yes, I would like to add also that I understand, why so many people are angry and disappointed. And I want to say on the record that I applaud the work and the service that Mr. Bishop did for this county. I know why so many of you are here today, standing, by him. I totally agree with Commissioner Control. Probably things could be handled differently, and I understand the disappointment and outrage. I wish I could support Commissioner's resolution today, because on the surface seems like a good compromise. However, just, on the surface, would be a good bipartisan effort. However, I don't think it is workable or even legal. And that's what I would like to put in the record, some of, of the issues that I have with the resolution per se. And I would like to ask Attorney Lenz to either come to the mic or and answer a few questions for me, please. Good morning, Mr. Stuhl.
Good morning.
My first question is it lawful for the Commissioner's Court to hire a consultant to manage the elections department?
Not to manage the elections department. It would be to provide the Commissioner's Court with the consultant's opinion about the operation of it or how it can be done, but not to manage it. That's the elections administrator.
Does the court has the authority to appoint an elections administrator?
No.
Is it lawful for this court to vote on a contract that we have never seen or reviewed?
It's highly inadvisable since you don't know the terms of the contract, looking at money that it's for or what the specifics.
Do we have the authority to reject an appointment made by the elections commissioner?
No.
I'm also torn by the fact that Mr. Sherber resigned from his position. However, does this court has the authority to reinstate an employee that has already resigned?
Not in that position, no. Because the appointment can only be made by the elections.
And last but not least, does this court has the authority to eliminate the functions of the elections department?
Not the functions of it in the sense of running the elections. The court does have the authority to eliminate the position of the elections administrator, in which case those functions would go back to the tax assessor collector in the county.
Thank you, Mr. Stuhl. I also talked to, thank you, Mr. Stuhl. I also talked to Mr. Scheller, and he told me he was ready to move on with his life and his career, and I certainly at this point don't blame him and understand, his desire. In my opinion, the only way to move forward of where we are today is to have a national search for the new elections administrators for Dallas County. I understand, Judge, after talking with you and to my colleagues, that the process has already started. I want to be sure that we restore as much as we can public confidence, and that we can have an election department beyond approach. And I respect the sentiments today. Sadly, in my opinion, the resolution was not legal or workable. Two people can be in charge of the elections department, and this court has no authority to remove that department. So I will not support the resolution. Thank you.
I would have another comment, just a clarification. And that is that we have an elections commission which this county had not heard of, and which had not had a meeting in 35 years. We were all surprised that it existed. Suddenly this meeting was called, but the elections commission, which there's now a bill that's been filed in Austin to eliminate the elections commission. This elections commission met unexpectedly. We didn't know about it, and it has no authority. It really exists as a county level unfunded mandate. That is, it has the authority to appoint an elections administrator, but it has no budgetary authority. So all of the funding of that administrator comes from you, the taxpayer, through the Commissioner's Court. So it's a situation in which the Elections Commission has the authority, but doesn't have the accountability or the responsibility. They can tell us what we have to pay for, and then we can vote up or down whether we're going to fund it. So to that extent, we do have some control. We are the only ones that can pass the budget because the Commissioner's Court is the only one that has the budgetary authority. So we can't name an elections administrator, our own department head. Isn't that crazy? But we got to pay for it. If we have a 3-2 vote, though, if we have a vote, we don't have to fund it. So there we are in a catch-22 that shouldn't exist. And I hope with this legislative session that you will vote the abolishment of the election commission, because it really stands between you and the people and their elected officials.
Judge, everybody's been talking about 35 years. First of all, the last comment Mr. Sherwood was appointing last 24 years, and our election commission did meet to appoint him. I was here when Connie Drayton Carmen was ousted, and he was appointed. That's number one. Number two, it does not, Mr. Stool said it goes back to the tax assessor and the county clerk. That's what you want to do? I'm fine with that. It was with the county clerk, and it was the legislation that created the election commission. And the 4th bill was a compromise. If you'll go back and pull the record, you may not have been aware, but most were aware. And of course, the fact that you weren't aware didn't make it not exist. The fact is, it's very clear. I think Mr. Stewart stated that. So, the question's been called for.
And I would like to state before we vote, once again, I think I've said this several times, but I did not call for Mr. Sherbert's resignation. I did not ask Mr. Sherbert to resign. I did not ask any other person to ask Mr. Sherbert to resign. I called for a meeting of a commission whose sole job is to make decisions about who should be the elections administrator, hiring and firing elections administrators. The purpose of that meeting, and I intend to call one every 2 years, is a performance review. The only way we can determine when we get our resumes in for our national search who is the most able and qualified applicant is to have meetings and to ask questions and to review their qualifications. The only way we can determine how good our administrators are doing is to do performance reviews. Now, I agree with my colleagues. This went off the rails, and it was not my intention for things to happen the way that they've happened. But I stand by my belief that we need performance reviews, and I want to do it in a bipartisan way, and I don't want to scare our county administrators, but I do want performance reviews yearly. We do it every other year for these elections. But every year, I want to see a performance review of the heads of our departments. And I want Ryan Brown to have that when he's making his budget recommendations to us, because we are facing a tremendous budget constraints, and we've got to learn to do more with less. Could we have done this better? I think we could have. But I don't want to mischaracterize that there was a conspiracy to oust Mr. Sherbert. Nothing could be further from the truth. And with that, I'll call it question's been called. Do you want to vote?
And I am going to vote yes, because I can give you 31 examples of where we have hired consultants in the past year in all of our major departments, including IT and the jail. My vote is yes.
Aye.
Nay.
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 Motion fails. I'd like to ask, with your indulgence, that we can quickly work. Is there any other order, or are we done with the consent agenda?
Consent agenda has been approved.
So with that in mind, and understanding, if you spoke to us last week, or if you're I've spoken to some of the Tea Party members that haven't spoken yet around the table. We have a dialogue, and I've had some members from that organization come by my office to visit with me. If you're one of those folks, could you let the folks who haven't had an opportunity to speak go first? I want to make it to hear from all of you, but I'm not sure how long I will make it. I'm going to hear from all of you upstairs, but I'd like to honor you by looking at you when you speak. So if you've already had a chance to speak to me, we're going to now, we're going to recess. Do I hear a motion to recess from public session? Second. So with that in mind, all those in favor? Aye. So with that in mind, and Ms. Brown, have you already read the rules so that don't be apprised?
That's right.
All right, and I'll ask the bailiff to read you the rules of the public speaker, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Judge. I would just like to remind all visitors and have them be advised this meeting is being conducted in accordance with provisions of Dallas County Code found in section 74-71. Visitors and speakers are to preserve order and decorum at all times. Personal, profane, or slanderous remarks are not appropriate and will not be allowed during the public comment period or while Commissioners Court is deliberating. Disruptive visitors may be removed and are subject to penalties found in the Penal Code, sections 38-13, 4201, and 4205. Individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and the maximum discussion on any one topic is limited to 30 minutes. Judge, are we ready to call the first speaker?
Would the first speaker please come forward, state your name and your address, please.
The first speaker we have on the list is Ms. Jane Foster.
Foster's coming forward. Is the volume on the second floor? It is they said they're from. Okay.
While she's coming forward, Daryl, I now remember we have a problem with our dockets if the judge doesn't.
We do it after the speaker, if you would go.
After this speaker, on these, and this does not count against your time, but I do recall that because of a situation with the criminal dockets, we'll need to run back onto our regular order again and allow a judge to make a presentation. It will be a 5-minute presentation, and we'll go right back to the speakers. Ms. Foster?
Judge Jenkins, my name is Jane Foster. I'm a native Dallas, Texas resident. I come to you today to speak to you regarding your newly elected position as County Commissioner Judge. I've watched you speak all during your campaign and your many statements regarding transparency and your desire to work for the good of the people of Dallas County, along with many other scripted promises. So I've been looking forward to seeing what wisdom and experience you will bring to the most powerful office in the county. To my shock, your first act was to call a closed commissioners meeting to discuss replacement of Bruce Sherbet, with scant notice to anyone, most of all Bruce Sherbet. Isn't it proper business conduct to have a person review the precedent at such time? That's number one. The voters are not as ignorant of politics being played out as you suppose. And I wonder, is this your transparency issue? Is that what you're talking about? If it is, we're sorely disappointed. Your newly elected judge for the Dallas County Commissioners, coming on board with no prior experience to a position that requires a large learning curve to become acquainted with many employees in supervisory positions. And hearing their stories and their voices, this in itself would take some time. Explain truthfully why this was the first public act of office and why it was so paramount. Was this your idea, or was it another commissioner's idea? Wisdom being more precious than knowledge would be a good philosophy for you to follow, Judge. You are equipped with a law degree giving you knowledge of the law, but you're not representing any kind of wisdom in this rush to eliminate Mr. Sherbet. A nationwide search for his replacement brings up another question which shows your lack of judgment. Have you not heard of our budget deficit in Dallas County? Sir, is this wisdom or politics? The voice of the people of Dallas County wants you to hear. We want Bruce Sherbet back. Thank you.
I'm sorry. We need to step away from the speakers for just a moment, and I'd ask for a motion to move, to go back in the.
We don't read it back in the clock. It is
Still breathing it in? All right, well, then,
We move to items 8E. Recommend the criminal district court manager, county criminal court manager position be reviewed by New Research Civil Service for proper classification and present a recommendation to the Civil Service Commission for final classification. Mr. Brown sent you an email earlier yesterday to describe this situation. I believe there are some judges who are here to speak on this issue.
Judge, in order that the record would have flow, I'd ask Mr. Brown to frame it for the record. And then I know Judge Angela King, who is the new presiding judge of the county criminal courts, is here. And I think I saw Judge Rosenfeld as well. I know Judge King is here.
Judges, could I ask you, if you're going to state the same things, would it be possible that just Judge King speak today so we can get back to the speakers, the public speakers who've traveled down? And I'll be available, as you know, in my office, if the one that didn't get to speak to us would like to come by at some point or available by phone. You're free to do what you want to do, but if you consider that, I'd appreciate it.
Good morning, Judge. I'll start by saying that, because we all know we're facing a shortfall of approximately $28 million. We need to do a full update on as it relates to that. As such, I've been bringing forth a variety of budgetary savings each week, and we've already voted on 2 quarters today that we need to make a position. And so this is a briefing that presents another option for a savings position. Effectively, what this says, the briefing says that I would like to have HR review the 2 positions in question, the county criminal court manager and the district criminal court manager, and review the classification of those 2 positions to ensure that over the years that classification of the down to those positions is still active. The reason I bring forward this now is because one of the positions is going to make at the end of the month, and we review it and decide if it's a position is overgraded, or should be at a lower grade, there's the opportunity of savings about $17,000. The other comment, the salary is still in the pay range of the new grade, so their salary won't change. They will place it where they fall in the new grade. So effectively, the coverages and packages that an opportunity. There's no guarantee that the savings will materialize. All the budget office can do is say that there's a question of whether or not to raise the coffer, that was sent over to the Human Resources Department today, that look at it and do a point of factor analysis like we do all our and then make a determination whether they feel that grade overgrade or not to speak to lower grade. Then it gets presented to you, the civil service commission, to find the overgrade improvement. So there's multiple levels of opportunities to have input on this. As HR does that point of factor, they'll also listen to the job, review the job description, we'll do a questionnaire with the incumbent, we'll talk to the incumbent, and certainly we'll listen to any of the input that was given. But this is just a request to send it to HR for them to take a look.
What are we doing this, all of this, this for a $17,000 savings? I mean, it seems apparent that that's worthwhile. Is this really something the court should spend time on?
Well, the court, I called the court to make a decision to send it to HR review. It's not something that HR will review on their own. That's all we're asking for.
Well, but, and Ryan did, but for the record, the Department of Labor audits us. And with regards to the responsibility, as Chair of Civil Service, with regards to these responsibilities, they have to be similar in nature to other such classified positions. We send those positions out to be bundled, given their mission. And this particular position, given its oversight, is not in kilter with other similar classified positions. Well, that's the position, period.
Well, and then we're asking for HR to confirm that.
That's correct. Okay. And even with your recommendation coming forward, that particular position has all other positions in the county that have that same responsibility according to classification.
Correct. On the dial speculation, a sheet of paper that shows those positions that are grade M, which is the current grade. It also shows those positions that are grade J, which is the proposed grade. Grade J in Dallas County is a high-level managerial position. Our quality assurance team leader who's supervising the entire maintenance of 89 positions, doing 24/7 maintenance in jail is grade J. So it is not a good thing to be moved to that level. It's just held at grade M, lose one. Grade M is the assistant director of the juvenile department, overseeing the entire probation services and supervising 215 positions. This particular position provides important activities for the courts, but supervises directly one position and gives oversight and direction to the court of the judges in the court. Once again, it's an important position, and we feel very important that it be filled, but then it's not at that level.
But does not have.
This is, I love that, but we have all these people here about a major subject, and we're talking about positions M and J. I mean, is there a city sense of priority here?
It's called county business, and we have direct authority over this, and that's what we're doing. But anyway, continue.
That's really gives me the overview of this, and I'd like to turn it over to the judges to make their comments.
Commissioners, I'm Judge Jeff Rosenfield. I'm a county criminal court judge. Thank you for letting me speak today regarding this issue. It's an important issue, Commissioner, and it's important because this person, we're having a person retire who is our county administrator, criminal court administrator. She holds a very important position with all the judges. She's in charge of 13 county criminal courts, and there's some duties that, with due respect to Mr. Brown, that are not comparable to jail cafeteria supervisors and other supervisors. It's really not a managerial position. It's not a supervisory position. It's a position that requires knowledge of court coordinating. It's a position that requires knowledge of technology. We're getting ready to institute a new court system, filing system that this person's going to have to get to know very well and have to apply it and teach it to the other coordinators. There are 7 other counties that pay this position over $100,000. And Mr. Brown is trying to suggest to you that you reduce it by 25%, down to some $60,000. We need to attract people to this job who can do the job effectively and help Dallas County save money. It's no secret, folks, that the county criminal courts are money generators for Dallas County. In fact, we generate, I think, over $13 million a year for Dallas County. And I think it would behoove the court to allow us to continue to generate money by having an effective person at the helm. So we're asking you not to decrease the level at all. In fact, we think it should be increased, but at a minimum, it shouldn't be decreased or sent to budget for review. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
I definitely listened to Judge Rosenfeld. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you to Judge King for her letter. I got it yesterday. And I'm going to support going for review. However, I think your point is excellent. We're in a competitive business. I want to be sure that this position has a salary that will attract a qualified person. So if I understand correctly, the process, it will go back to the Civil Service Commission for review, and our judges will have an opportunity to give input into the process.
Correct. HR will review it, so they'll have an opportunity to get input, and then
Civil Service will
hear that, and they'll have an opportunity to discuss it with the citizens.
But let me remind the commission, I don't know what other counties do, and we don't pay our judges for the counties. They're bonded. I mean, the only way there's a separation in judges is by state law, the difference between county criminal and district judges. And that's $1,000. That's state law. Other than that, these jobs are bundled. We have very little to say about what the market here versus what the market in Harris County is. And there's a difference. And so, all of that will be shared with them, but we don't just emphatically decide that we want to pay somebody more. I think we just got a new director from juvenile from Harris County. She had some people she wanted to bring on. She couldn't bring them on. HR said, this is what the bonding says. That's it. You don't get a chance to just say, we want to pay them more because Harris County pays them more. We don't get that opportunity.
However, I do want to, be sure that the judges are part of the process, and that we will consider a competitive salary.
Thank you. And is there another judge? Judge King? Thank you, Judge King. Does that conclude the judges that wish to speak on this matter?
I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm here on Judge Christine Wade, and I'm here as well, and I agree with Judge Rosenfeld's position.
Thank you, Judge Wade. Are there any other judges that are in the room that want to voice support? If not, hearing none, I'd like to move back to the public speakers, if we could. With the next public speaker, please come forward, state your name and your address, sir.
My name is the Reverend Bill Lovell. I'm a resident of Dallas County, 14527 Meandering Way, Dallas, Texas.
You're on the list. You're on the list. Another list. Go ahead.
Judge Jenkins, Honorable Commissioners, Reverend Hill. Last Sunday was the birthday of President Ronald Reagan. January 17th, just a few weeks earlier, was the day we as a nation remembered the contributions of Martin Luther King. Not everyone remembers that these two men are yoked forever in history because it was President Reagan who signed the law that created the federal holiday in honor of Martin Luther King. At the Rose Garden speech, when the president signed legislation, he commented quite poignantly on the contributions of Reverend King, and he focused specifically on Reverend King's involvement in fair elections, specifically the Civil Rights Voting Act, but just generally the idea that we value in this country free and fair and transparent elections. It's actually on this topic of elections, Judge Jenkins, I'd like to speak briefly to you and to the court this morning. I'm a judge too. I am an election judge. I have been an election judge in Dallas County for almost 10 years. Anybody who's ever been a judge knows what's involved. You show up very, very early in the morning, way before 7 a.m. You work all day long. You might sneak away for a quick lunch. You fill in all kinds of paperwork. You operate technology that is always new, always challenging. And we all work very, very hard to make sure that voters have the opportunity to participate in what Reverend King called the sacred right of voting. Well, as an elections judge, it has been my privilege to work with dozens of volunteers in my own precinct, Precinct 1812 in North Dallas, and hundreds of others in the county of both parties to help protect the integrity of the ballot box. We all take it very, very, very seriously, and absolutely no one has taken that responsibility more seriously than Bruce Sherbet, Dallas County's elections administrator for 24 years. Bruce actually took office just 4 years after Martin Luther King Day became an official holiday. And in all of those years, through election after election after election, hotly contested elections where people were in fever pitches towards one another, through all of that time, Bruce Sherbet has done an exemplary job. He has been skillful, organized, careful, fiscally prudent, and above all, he has been scrupulously fair. And as a result, Bruce Sherbet has fans at both ends of the political spectrum. And it's an honor for me to know him and to count him a friend. But Judge, I'm not here this morning to speak kind words, nice things about a dedicated civil servant. I am here with many others.
Can we extend him by 30 seconds?
You'd like to finish your
I'll just finish my sentence by saying,
in honor to the others.
yes, sir. It is very much my hope that the court will consider the fair-minded, judicious proposal that Judge Dickey put forward, Commissioner Dickey put forward, and figure out a way, it's possible to figure out a way to not have on-the-job training for the city elections later this year and the presidential election next year, when it is essential that we have fair elections that have the full support of the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward.
Beverly Whittington.
Ms. Whittington, are you here? Oh, yes.
Mr. Michael Porter is next, if you'll be ready.
Mine is integrity in government. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. I am proud to be an American. Freedom is not free. Would you not say that, Mr. Price and all the commissioners? I'm indebted to all those proud American patriots who have given their lives so that I can have the benefits to love God, home, and country. Likewise, one's character is the basis for our liberty. It is not about power or politics, but our own integrity. Martin Luther King, Jr., a man of honor and peace, said, "A nation or civilization that continues to produce soft-minded men purchases its own spiritual debt on the installment plan." It is very disturbing to hear that Mr. Bruce Sherbet has resigned. As a past Democrat of this county, I feel that he was nudged out of his job. That begs this question: why?
What or who has a political agenda to gain out of his job? I do not know this man, but I did receive my instruction packet from this office at a mandatory meeting for all county workers for this past polling precinct election. My first, I may add, in being in that capacity. In delivering his address, in my opinion, my impression was that of a person of integrity and honesty, not whether he was a Democrat or a Republican. Our vote is so very precious. Just remember the people, ink finger, in the Mideast who appreciate the value of their vote. At the end of one's life, God cannot be bought, but integrity, character, honesty, and love of one another are the keys to God's world. This past week, we celebrated Ronald Reagan's 100th birthday. Freedom is a God-given right. Voting is part of that process. As President Reagan stated, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in their bloodstreams. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or that one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States where free men were free. It is my hope and my prayer that you will have the insight and integrity to consider what is best for Dallas. This is the first meeting that I have attended on such an important issue in the Commissioner's Court for 24 years. I appreciate your time.
Judge, James Michael Porter. I live at 5407 Deep Canyon Drive, Garland, Texas. Morning, Judge, Commissioners. I want you all to know first you're in my prayers. My name is James Michael Porter. My family generations in Texas go back to the 1800s. I was raised in Mesquite and now live in Garland. I'm a Christian and not ashamed to call on the name of Jesus Christ. I love America, the state of Texas, and my lifelong home of Dallas County. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, the owner of JMP Consulting Group, and a real estate broker. I'm a conservative constitutionalist, a Tea Party coordinator, a 2010 poll watcher, and a Republican chairman for Precinct 2146. First, I want to thank you, Commissioner Dickey, for your efforts to rectify this injustice. Sadly, we have come to expect covert actions like the one used to remove Bruce Sherbert from the President's new puppet. Could the actual problem be that fair elections are a threat to this court's agenda? Bruce Sherbert held that office 24 years, and is still very popular. He is nationally recognized, has an exemplary record, he is impartial and endorsed by Republicans and Democrats alike. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't understand how we can railroad Bruce and turn around this weekend and give the key to the city to a convicted felon. Unbelievable. It is imperative we take this country back for our posterity, and we have to start by cleaning up our own house first. To that end, we will no longer allow the deceitful Chicago-style political tactics and thuggery which have taken root in Dallas County to remain unchallenged. The people of America, and especially Texas, are now politically awake and watching every move the national, state, and county government makes. And we are both offended and disgusted with what has become the norm. We refuse to stand down any longer. Remember, the eyes of Texas are upon you, and there will be a day of reckoning. The Bible warns in Numbers 32:23, be sure your sin will find you out. Thank you for your time. God bless Texas. Semper Fi.
Virginia Fleckenhall, Larry Williams next.
Virginia Fleckenhall, 420 North McCarver. Thank you. Virginia Fleckenhall, 4020 North McCarver Boulevard, Irving, Texas. I'd like to talk about the commitment of the newly elected judge and our concerns about voter fraud. A trusted and respected election administrator has been removed from his job of 24 years. We want to know why, and we have the right to know. I reference the Texas Public Information Law and the Texas Open Meetings Act, available on the Attorney General's website. Under the fundamental philosophy of the American constitutional form of representative government that adheres to the principle that government is the servant and not the master of the people, there's the policy of this state that each person is entitled, unless otherwise expressly provided by law, at all times, to complete information about the affairs of government and the official acts of public officials and employees. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. The people insist on remaining informed so that they may retain control over the instruments they have created. The provisions of this chapter shall be liberally construed in favor of granting a request for information. There are also strict rules regarding information about an employee, especially a significant employee. As it regards the dismissal of an employee, the Act allows an executive or closed session to discuss various aspects of employment. But in the end, any final action by the governing body on a personnel matter must be taken in open session. An official faces potential criminal penalties if such closed gatherings are used with the intent of circumventing a discussion of public business at an open meeting. The performance review never took place because he signed a pre-written resignation letter, therefore eliminating the need for that closed-door session. I propose a public meeting in the immediate future which informs the public the policies and procedures of elections. We have the right and the need to know before the elections so that we know things are being done in a transparent manner. Judge Jenkins has given his commitment to transparency in government. We have not seen it here. These are the words from the Dallas Morning News Voter's Guide of 2010. He used the word transparency 10 times. He's a member of Highland Park United Church, life member of the NAACP, longtime advocate and supporter of the Southern Poverty Law Center, member Dallas Bar Association, president, Dallas Trial Lawyers Association, immediate past president, Dallas Democrat Lawyers Association, 2008 Texas Director of Voter Protection for the Obama campaign. I think you understand why we are concerned about voter fraud. We don't want any voter fraud.
Yes.
Just for our records, I'm sure to state your address.
Judge Jenkins and Commissioners, I'm Larry Weiner, and I reside at 6137 Sol Ross Lane in Dallas. I felt compelled to be here today to address an issue that's very troubling to many of us who have been involved in conducting nonpartisan, efficient, and effective elections. For myself, I've been an election judge in Dallas County for about 20 years, and I've also served on the Signature Verification Committee, which processes ballots by mail. During these many years, I've had the great pleasure to have been associated with a truly outstanding public employee, Mr. Bruce Sherbert. I've never had a concern that elections conducted by Mr. Sherbert during his 24 years as elections administrator would be anything but fair and honest. But now I'm very concerned and alarmed that fair and honest elections will be only a memory in Dallas County. So I digress. Once upon a recent time, there was a candidate for Dallas County Judge who promised that if elected, he would bring open and transparent county government and he would sponsor a new code of ethics for county government. While most fairy tales have happy endings, this story proceeded with a malicious, politically motivated firing of a 24-year election administrator. I say firing because whatever quibbling by the county judge and his co-conspirator county commissioner has transpired, that's what it was. By statute, the election commission has no authority to perform a performance appraisal of the election administrator Firing and subsequent hiring was their only options and motivations. The county has a standing committee, the Citizens Election Advisory Committee, whose responsibility is to evaluate the performance of major elections. No such evaluation was done of the November 2nd general election. Mr. Sherbert was a victim of political and character assassination to satisfy a blatantly partisan political agenda. It is ironic the elections administrative position option was created to remove a skilled position from the control of partisan elected positions of county tax assessor collector or county clerk. And now those two positions are also co-conspirators in the termination of a valuable employee and department head for political purposes. At this time, I ask that all supporters of Bruce Sherbert and what he stands for, honesty and integrity, to rise and be recognized. I urge a return to honesty and integrity to Dallas County government by rejecting the actions of a rogue election commission, by rejecting the forced resignation of a talented and gifted public servant, Bruce Sherbert. Mr. Sherbert should be reinstated and promptly returned to the service of the citizens and the community of Dallas County. And I thank you for your consideration.
Next. Mr. Russell Ramsland, follow her.
Judge Jenkins, counsel. My name is Nell Helfenbein, 200 Wesley Drive, DeSoto, Texas, and I'm speaking in reference to Bruce Sherbert. For the last 23, 24 years, in Dallas County, he's had the privilege of a fair and unbiased administrator for the Dallas County Elections Department, Bruce Sherbert. He provided training indiscriminately for all parties, and the training was accepted and unbiased. Rarely do members of Democratic and Republican parties agree on anything, much less demonstrate support together. However, today, members of both parties are gathered in this court to show support for Mr. Sherbert, and we request that a 2-year contract be granted. The nationwide search for an elections administrator required payment of thousands of taxpayer dollars to a search group. Search groups generally start at $75,000 to $150,000 for a position of this type. And then also, they're going to have expenditures to include airfare, hotel, and meals for various candidates. The question is why? The city is going to experience cuts due to the current economic downturn, and this expenditure is not really required. Mr. Sherbert has proven that he's a respected, knowledgeable administrator with many demonstrated competencies. Thank you.
Before I start, I have a quick question. I was actually behind Mr. Sheridan. I'm Russell Ramsland.
Last week.
Oh, yes, you get to speak first because he spoke last week. What are our rules? Please proceed.
All right, I just want to make sure that I'm not heading in front, so to speak. My name is Russell Ramsland. I reside at 6339 Desco Drive here in Dallas, Texas. In thinking about my remarks to you today, I was struck by the privilege that has actually been conferred upon you to represent your fellow citizens as Dallas County Commissioners. Even in the case of those of you who won by scant margins, you are nonetheless charged with representing all of the citizens from your respective areas, and you are honored with this office. Lately, I've been hearing from a lot of people who would gladly like to trade places with some of you. But my point today is that in this last election, the people of Dallas County, indeed the people of America, spoke out and gave a resounding voice for their elected officials to address themselves first and foremost to the pressing spending problems that exist at all levels of government. And the Dallas County area is no exception, with many spending problems, including that of the pension system, which is unsustainable in today's environment. The people also gave evidence that they would like their elected officials to work in a bipartisan fashion as possible. But what's happened here? Well, the first thing out of the box, after all the campaign rhetoric about transparency, instead of turning your attention to the real problems of spending, you create a brand new problem where none existed. And to make matters worse, you picked one in an area where there was clear bipartisan agreement that none existed. Both county chairmen of the Republicans and the Democrats agree Bruce Sherbert is an outstanding and very fair leader in the Dallas County elections. My question is that really the problem? Even in the Dallas Morning News editorial board, they've recognized this as a sharply partisan attempt being driven by a commissioner in particular to install a corrupting crony process in the Dallas County Elections Division. Now, I've been told the fix is in. Well, your decisions may be made, but the fix is just starting, and it's sitting right here behind you.
Yeah.
Be aware that we are watching, and we are not in any sort of agreement with these activities. We have tools at our disposal that we will use to bring transparency, even as you try to cloak it in secret meetings in darkness. I would strongly urge each and every one of you not to drag us down this path. I would urge you to turn away from this sort of politics. You can right this wrong. And ultimately, despite your attempts to wash your hands of this, much as Caesar did, the fact of the matter is that the buck does ultimately stop here. I hope it will stop here.
Mr. Jim Burke. Mr. Jim Burke, following Mr. Burke will be Ms. Bonnie Wells.
Hello, my name is Jim Burke. I reside at 9001 Martville Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75243, apartment 335 there. It is good to be here today and to be allowed to speak. Maureen, you are my person, and I appreciate that very much. Judge Jenkins, thank you, and glad you got away. Likewise, Dr. Garcia. I am I'll make this very short, because my comments essentially mirror James there. I am very disappointed in how this whole thing came down, and what I think was not recognized were the voices of any of the voters that elected you. So with that, that's my only comment. In the future, always listen to our voters.
Good morning, Judge Jenkins, Commissioners. I'm Bonnie Wells, and I live at 2107 West Prairie Creek Drive in Richardson, Texas. I've been precinct chairman for almost 20 years. I've been an election judge in my own precinct for 15 years or so. But I stand before you this morning to testify to my experience working in the elections department. Last week, Commissioner Price mentioned that there has never been any voter fraud found in Dallas County elections. I am here to say that I personally witnessed fraud in the 2008 presidential election and in the recount of House District 105 while working on the ballot board. When I first began, I told the ballot board judge that although she and I were of different political ideologies, we were both there to ensure a fair election, that this process would be open and fair. We were there to see that the letter and the spirit of the law were to be followed. I soon found out that was such a naive idea. While on the ballot board, I personally witnessed the ballot board judge on many occasions using whiteout or liquid paper on provisional ballot affidavits to change the vote of ballot board members. In the recount of House District 105, when there were many poll watchers in the room, the decorum around the desk of the ballot board judge was out of control. Poll watchers from the same political party as the ballot board judge were allowed to sit on her desk and influence the judge continually. During this time, the assistant elections administrator, whom you would like to see put in temporarily till you find a nationwide search to be the head of the elections department, did not always act in a very professional manner. and allow the ballot board judge to continue acting unprofessional also. Many ballot board workers and I wrote letters complaining about the behavior in the ballot board. We gave sworn statements under oath as to the fraud we all witnessed. Another ballot board worker wanted to swear out a complaint of fraud, but was told this would never go anywhere because it would end up in the district attorney's office and it would stay there. It would never be acted upon. With Bruce Sherbert's forced resignation, Danny Clancy, the voter registrar person, Mary Kay West, the head of the ballot counting room, have also resigned because they do not have confidence in the future of the elections, that they would be fair without fraud, as do I. You have destroyed the confidence of the people in the Dallas County by forcing this resignation.
Thank you, ma'am.
I would just say that without this justice, there can be no peace. No justice, no peace.
Mr. Dick Dobson? He's the, I see him. Mr. Dobson, is the person on the state your address.
I'm Dick Dobson. I live in Irving, 1505 Westwood. I'm a Democratic precinct chair. I think I'm going to overuse the word passion here. I got into politics, which precinct chairs are involved in, because of getting passionate about Obama. I have been believing in, I have been amazed at how many, the good things that I have found in politics. It was such a positive year that I kept going. I was delegation chair to the state convention in 2008 for my Senate district. Passion drives people. But what I've seen, and I've been an election judge ever since 2008, 8 or 9 times, or a clerk, and everything I have seen, it's like, this guy, you gotta know him. He is just totally, has integrity that's just phenomenal. I'm heartbroken by this. I took off leave from work to call precinct chairs all over Irving, and I got all but one. They took the words out of my mouth. I spoke to them half an hour each, that kind of thing, 45 minutes. I think what has driven Bruce all this time is a passion of his own for just absolutely, he's just absolutely devoted to fairness, and I think this is what we've needed. This is what the whole country needs. And to lose this man, I ask you this, if he's going to be gone, can you find a way, commissioners, to use the talents and the devotion to fairness and nonpartisanship of this man somehow? Thank you.
Mr. Sheraton, please come forward and take your name.
Yes, good morning. My name is Richard Sheridan. I live at 3022 Forest Lane, Dallas, Texas. I'm judge and commissioners. I appreciate being here today. I will not mention any names. I understand that that's not appropriate. Our nation and county is in a crisis and severely divided because of the irresponsibility, the unethical and unconstitutional conduct of certain members of our federal and county government. In opening the new Congress led by the new Republican House Speaker John Boehner, the U.S. Constitution was read as a not-so-subtle in-their-faces statement from the Republican Party that the former Democratic congressional majority violated the Constitution during the first 2 years of the Obama presidency. What grandstanding and what hypocrisy. It was the fascist previous presidency that got our nation into the recession and near depression we are in. I'll quote Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on this subject. He stated, quote, 80% of the Republicans and 70% of the Democrats are corrupt, end quote. There are no saviors in Washington, which is why our nation must be fixed from the ground up. starting from the city and county levels on nation's building blocks. We must stop blindly taking sides, be unbiased, nonpartisan truth seekers who wear both the elephant and donkey t-shirts should be an inspiration and motivation to all of us. In fixing our county, and this is no partisanship, I'm here today to call for the immediate resignation of a county commissioner. The cause is that this commissioner has allegedly violated his oath of office and allegedly acted consistently against our U.S. Constitution, allegedly acted consistently for either his own and or special interests to the disadvantage of his constituency and to the detriment of the county. I have 4 items here. I'm just going to go to one. Is it true that this commissioner removed Drew Sherwood from office as part of an overall effort for he and his special interest constituency to take political control of Dallas County as Tammany Hall once did in New York in the early 1900s? If we don't learn from history, we are damned to repeat it. There are 2 corrupt paths to political control today. One, the media. With big enough lies and enough big money, people can be led to vote for something they wouldn't have had they been told the truth. 2, theft. Through vote fraud, fake votes are created or votes reversed, with the quote-unquote invisible rulers getting their puppets in office. There is a very important City of Dallas election coming up in May, and the corrupt county elections office can decide on who wins. Is this why Drew Sherwood was so hastily removed? I will not disgrace our county with the most incendiary allegation versus this commissioner. I value my life and freedom. The sooner this commissioner resigns or is removed from office, the sooner we can bring all Dallas County together and truly address all of our important human needs in a nonpartisan, elephant on donkey dancing together way. The elephant commissioner is in the room. Let's stop being donkeys any longer by ignoring it. Thank you very much.
This includes our public speakers, am I correct? We're going to recess for 5 minutes. When we open back up, we'll be in briefing session. Pursuant to our rules, the most senior member of the Commissioners Court will be taking the gavel. I will be attending and listening in from my office upstairs for our briefing session and to the extent possible for our closed session. One point of clarification, just to ease people's minds, I realize we're not changing any minds here, but the national search is being done via internet or with the help of the National Association of Elections Administrators, so it will not be a costly process. At this point, it is free. There may be things that we need to pay for, but we'll deal with those as budget items. I do appreciate you coming, and I'm glad I was able to hear from you. I do care what you have to say. And we are honored by your presence here. We're adjourned for 5 minutes.
In times of great challenge and controversy, cowards ask the question. Oh, I've done something. Okay, we're on the record now. You can't hear? That's all right, I don't mind re-quoting. Let's go to the Dallas County Court's briefing agenda. The Health and Human Services, Mr. Martin.
Yes, sir. Item number 1A and B, those items are on your formal agenda. Item 2, we have a presentation from our county treasurer and our borough council, Mr. Matt Bowles, who is here to discuss our tax note.
Okay.
I'm just going to turn it over to Matt Bowles, the Financial Review Committee discussed this and wanted to bring up kind of a timeline report, so you can go through the timeline.
Mr. Bowles, I'm sure we got the judges upstairs and Commissioner Garcia's new. Introduce yourself, please, for the record. Tell us your years of experience so we won't think you're inexperienced, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Commissioner Price. Good morning, and good morning, Judge, via voice. My name is Matt Bowles. I'm Managing Director of RBC Capital for 20 years. I co-head the state and have been your financial advisor during that 20-year period. Any questions about my history with the county?
Well, you know, you're getting ready to profile us with regard to our issue. I was just explaining to those individuals who are very interested about our financial position. Wish you would give some overview of where Dallas County is financially.
Commissioner, I'll be glad to do that. Dallas County, for those of you who do not know this, enjoys a natural double AAA. So let me explain that Moody's Investors Service and Standard & Poor's have awarded the county some years back into the 30-40 year range with the AAA bond rating. Not only does that speak to the bond indebtedness that you have and your ability to repay that, your vibrant tax base, the diverse economic tax base that you have, but it also is indicative of the fiscal policies of the court, not only with regards to your fund balances, your budget process, but with your general policy making and procedures.
I appreciate your explanation.
Sure.
But could we just go back to basics?
Okay.
Is this briefing on the agenda because Dallas County is intending to borrow money to issue bonds?
Yes, Commissioner Dickey.
So that's what you're...
Excuse me, I think I'm presiding. Will you continue, Mr. Wolf?
Sure, Commissioner. Part of the rating process, obviously, is not only, again, with looking at your outstanding indebtedness, but it also relates to policy matters of the court. So let me address both. Dallas County, as you know, is a policy of the court, is under what we call a pay-as-you-go system. The county has not issued long-term debt obligations for some years and has rapidly paid down their debt service over the last 10 years. I would say, without naming names of the larger counties in the state of Texas, that Dallas County has the lowest indebtedness as it relates to your size by population. Harris, Travis, Tarrant, I could go on and on.
But we're going to change that.
Well, actually, as part of the PAYGO system, let me explain that, Commissioner Dickey. What you have done over the last several years, as you work into capital projects under the PAYGO system, rather than use your undesignated general fund balance to pay for those projects and replenish it, you've done short-term borrowings, much like construction loans. We call them tax notes. So you're actually bridging yourself into these projects and paying that bridge loan back very quickly. So unlike long-term indebtedness of 30 years, this is 7-year or less debt. So it is viewed very differently in the eyes of the credit markets and is not considered a long-term debt obligation consistent with the PAYGO system.
The reason I'm questioning you is that no one has ever been to my office to discuss this refinance. And I'm asking questions because this is something that has evidently been discussed by some commissioners, but it has not been discussed with me. So when you come before on the briefing agenda, which means that this is going to be on the formal agenda next week to vote on, why hasn't anyone been in to my office to discuss this with me? Is this something that's only being decided by a couple of commissioners, or?
Commissioner Dickey, the typical protocol for bringing something to the court, and my direction from the court has always been to first review the issue with the Financial Review Committee, which has been done and briefed, and then the court administrator places me on the agenda. I've been glad to make myself available to any and all of you, but that's been my typical protocol. I'm glad to change that.
That's not the case. Mr. Wells, you want to speak to this, please? As the elected county treasurer.
Mr. Wells does not have voting authority.
Mr. Wells is in charge, again, not having read as usual. Not having read as usual. Mr. Wells is over the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee has met. And as a result,
he is not a voting member of this court.
This court has nothing to do. This has to come through the county treasurer's office. Mr. Wells, you want to speak?
The Financial Review Committee that I'm the chair of has discussed both the tax note and a refunding opportunity. And actually, the court was briefed on that some time ago, last fall. And then we did have a meeting within the last few weeks where we went back over the financials, the timeline, participation. I did provide Mr. Dickey's office with this information, but it was the iteration that was at the Financial Review Committee, and there's a little bit of new information that I didn't have until today that Mr. Bowles was preparing. And so that this is a briefing to kind of update the court on where we're at in terms of the refunding of the tax note, give a timeline of what steps that would need to be taken, recommend participation, all of which was discussed at Financial Review Committee. The judge was in attendance at that meeting, and I know because of scheduling, and I apologize for that, I know Commissioner Dickey couldn't be there at that meeting, but I did try to make sure that your office had the first iteration of this report, and this is an updated version that Mr. Bowles is going to present today.
Mr. Bowles, want to continue?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Trying to remember where I was. We were talking about
you were
the health of the county.
You're a week away from our being asked to vote on this.
Actually, Commissioner Dickey, we've delayed that to March 22nd so that there can be consideration.
As in the package.
I was going to get to that.
Tax notes.
The tax notes and the refinancing. Again, the county is in spectacular shape as with regards to long-term debt. I don't think anyone would argue that your AAA rating is in jeopardy in any way, shape, or form due to the debt profile of the county currently has.
There's a savings with regards to this proposed refi.
That's correct, sir. Okay. I will touch on that just in a minute. The other aspect of your bond credit rating and your view in the capital markets is your policy setting. I think Dallas County, and you can read through your rating reports, has always been viewed as a very fiscally run operation. Again, you have very vibrant reserves. The work that your county treasurer and your county budget officer and your county auditor have done always are characterized with the utmost in conservatism and professionalism, and they routinely meet with the rating agencies on an annual basis, and you show very, very well. When and if you decide to pursue this matter that we'll discuss today, I have no reason to believe that you won't be viewed in the markets as a very stellar credit and a very sought-after investment for those who wish to purchase them. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, that's sufficient, Mr. Bowles. And the standard is not the ability of this court to just raise taxes. It's the ability of this court to use all tools at its disposal to manage the budget. And that's been viewed very clearly from those agencies, and with high regard.
That is correct, sir, with very high regard, I would say. It used to be that Dallas County was one of 17 counties in the nation that was double AAA. I believe that number is now up to 34, and probably will decline in this out of recession, but I have no reason to believe that your rating is in jeopardy.
Commissioner Price, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bowles, I do appreciate our bond rating, and I think that just for openness to the public, I realize that part of this issuance of debt is going to be for our communication system, which we are partnering with the city of Dallas.
No,
actually, this issue of debt will be for the jail debt bond.
This is jail.
Okay, well, and that's okay, and I understand that. But I think it would be good, before you go into the details, if you preface it with what this particular issuance of debt is for.
Yes, ma'am.
We have several issuances of debt, and they're for different things. So I think the public's rather confused when they don't know what this particular thing is going for. So I would appreciate your...
Absolutely, Commissioner Dickey. I have put a presentation in front of you that I intended to work through, and so I'll move around a bit to accommodate your question, Commissioner Dickey. If you'll turn to page 5, and I will ask for Ryan Brown's assistance with one small modification to this page. Ryan, you do have a copy?
Yes, I do.
Okay. On page 5, we have listed the projects that will be considered to be funded through the issuance of a 7-year tax note to be issued on the county's credit. You can see the projects that are enumerated there for you, and I believe the second project, the Public Works repayment, will be pulled and replaced. Ryan, can you help me with that?
With an elevator upgrade.
Elevator.
This table came from a briefing that I did probably back in November, October, and at that time, while I briefed it to you, I made the verbal comment that I wanted to replace the Public Works repayment with the elevator upgrade. I prefer to have more concrete projects where I'm able to point at what we're borrowing the money for. And so the elevator upgrade system, we all know we have a variety of elevators that are below standard at this point in time that need to be addressed. So we were going to swap that
We
out.
certainly do. I got stuck in one with the sheriff for 45 minutes.
That's one of the elevators that would be modernized. And then the other projects here, all had inducement resolutions. So
Exactly. We've already passed.
We passed the resolutions that say later when we borrow the money, we were going to reimburse us for any costs up front. But the largest project really is the jail bed modification, which DOJ is really pushing us to move forward with, and will have great operational advantages for both Parkland and Dallas County.
So that the record would be clear, this should be an addendum to the note. The $25 million is just a supplement to the $48 million on the jail medical bond. That's number one. Number two, so that the record would be clear, why a 7-year note as opposed to a long-term note, which does not impact our rating. The 7-year note is designed as what we call a bridge, an interim note, and does not impact it.
According to the pay-as-you-go policy, it allows you to do interim borrowing because the state law requires you to have all funds up front before you enter into a contract. There's been projects that we've done, such as the K South Tower, or the Institute of Forensic Sciences, and also now with the jail MedMod, where rather than waiting for the cash to pile up and just hold on to it in the bank account, we've gone to the market, borrowed the money, and then been paying it back based on the cash flow that we had. The policy allows it. The policy also states that we cannot borrow out past 2021, and so this meets that policy target as well, because that's the point at which we will be paid completely cashless, debt-free.
You can continue in one addendum to page 5. Even though you're replacing the $7 million,
It doesn't change the overall borrowing amount.
we still owe Public Works capital. So
Public Works is in the process of reviewing their cash flow, and then once they've done that, they're going to sit down with me, and then we'll have another dialogue with Commissioners Court as a joint effort to show you what that cash flow looks like.
Okay.
Mr. Price, the judge is having a little trouble hearing folks. Are just a
Okay.
little bit close to the microphone.
Okay. Mr. Bowles.
Thank you, Commissioner Price. If you will now turn to page 6, I'll just go ahead and cover the tax notes in full, and then we'll move to the other proposition. This is essentially a projected summary of findings. This is not final in any way, shape, or form. Essentially, the county would issue $45 million in tax notes to be repaid over a 7-year period, utilizing your AAA rating. The summary of findings are below. I think the couple items that I would point to of particular interest to the court and your constituency is the all-in TIC. That's the true interest cost, or the true rate on the notes. That is projected at 2.9%, understanding that it has 0.5% cushion, so you're actually looking at 2.4%. Very, very cost-effective financing due to the nature of your AAA rating and the 7-year amortization. The other item that I would point out is your average annual debt service. As to what Mr. Brown just spoke of, this will come out of cash flow from the county as part of the PAYGO system and consistent with your policy. Are there any questions on the tax notes? Thank you. Let's turn now back, if we can, please, to page 2. I'll briefly summarize what's on page 1 by saying that interest rates are at a historical all-time low. I think we all understand that given the nature of the economy. And due to that, there is the chance, or the opportunity rather, for the county to refinance 2 separate series of obligations that were issued back in 2001. When those issues were sold to the public, they had a 10-year call option. So the 10-year call option is now upon us in 2011. They can be redeemed from investors and simply replaced with lower interest rate debt. So if you look at the table below, we're talking about the Series 2001A unlimited tax bonds and then Series 2001B limited tax bonds. You see the total gross debt service savings for the Series 2001A bonds is projected to be $2.774 million. That will be a reduction in your interest and sinking fund tax rate. And then on the 2001B obligations, it's only about $26,000, and you might wonder why we're putting that in there. The point is that if you don't do it now, that $26,000 will erode very quickly. So since we're doing the other, it makes sense just to add it in. $26,000 is a lot of money, I realize, but up against 2.7, it looks somewhat small. The key statistic here that I would point to give the court, and again the public, confidence that this is the right proposition to bring to the court, is the very bottom line, present value of debt service savings as a percentage of refunded bonds. That's a very short way of saying that this is a statistic that we use to gauge whether or not this financing is cost effective. Typically, when it is above 2 or 3% on a transaction of this size, it's something that we recommend you do. Obviously, it's over twice that, so it's clearly a proposition that, as your financial advisor, we would recommend you pursue. 2 pages that follow that are simply the cash flows that feed into that summary, so I won't go through those, but you can see, if you'll notice on this table under gross savings, what your annual projected debt service savings would be. And again, this is a very simple proposition whereby you pay off your old bonds, replace it with lower interest rate debt, and your payment is essentially lower by the amounts that you see in that column. Any questions on the refinancing?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Judge, we can.
Judge, we haven't talked about the syndicate yet.
My question is on the refinancing. It's not on the syndicate.
Okay.
And my speaker went out a little bit. Red had to fix it, but and maybe y'all touched upon this. Would there not be a savings if we waited until the 90-day call, or have we touched on that?
Actually, I did. That's a very astute observation, Judge. These obligations cannot be refinanced until 90 days prior to the call date. So we've arranged the schedule that we'll go through in just a little bit to accommodate that 90-day call period. To Commissioner Dickey's point, we are not bringing back for your consent agenda next week a preliminary official statement or any financing documents. We're going to wait until the 22nd of March so that we have the appropriate numbers, appropriate parameters, and you can consider the proposition at that point for a vote. Does that answer your question, Judge?
That does. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Let's now move, if we can, very quickly to page 7. Part of conducting this financing will involve the county naming a team of underwriters to conduct a negotiated offering of these securities in the public market. What we have shown you here is a history of transactions that you've done going back to 2001 A and B and who the players were. Part of what we do as your financial advisor is to make sure that we assist you, although you name this team, but we assist you in designing a team that has the capital resources, the sales force, and the wherewithal to get the lowest cost of financing for the county. I believe we've done a very good job of that. Part of that is proven up when we come back to you for a briefing after the financing to show you comparable transactions and how you fared in the market. Our job as financial advisors is to make sure that you get the lowest cost of financing. And part of that is helping you design a team. The second part of what we try to assist the county with is in meeting your diversity goals. Obviously, there are local players, there are local minority players, and what we have done in the past is to design a team around these 2 objectives, and it has worked magnificently. What we have shown you again is a history here. You can see some of these names you will recognize readily. Investing with the Financial Review Committee, we felt it best to design a team around local participation and your diversity objectives. And so the team outlined at the bottom of the page would be the team that is up for consideration and your approval. Again, this is not a team that I name. It's up to you, and it's something that you'll need to consider. The firms would be Siebert Branford Shank as co-book runner, Estrada Hinojosa as co-senior manager, and First Southwest Company as co-manager. Siebert Branford Shank is has local representation, is an African-American owned firm. Estrada Hinojosa is a local firm that is Hispanic owned, and First Southwest Company is a regional broker-dealer founded in I don't even know I was going to say that. I'm thinking about my own firm. 1940 something, I guess, here in Dallas, and has been a dominant player. Their counsel would be West and Associates, again, founded here in Dallas.
Who's there?
Counsel is who?
West and Associates.
And West and Associates has been a counsel before.
To the county before.
And is a Red Book firm.
Correct, they are. The Red Book is the industry book that basically provides the firms that have the proper accreditations and securities licenses and so forth.
Who is the principal, or who are the principals?
Royce West.
Royce West. And we obviously, being the legislative session, we are doing some vetting around whether or not there's any conflict interest there. As it stands right now, we do not believe there is. And again, his staff has worked with the county on a number of transactions, so we have great comfort around it. Understanding that I don't choose them either, and they're really chosen by the underwriters.
There's no prohibition in being a state legislative person and acting as counsel for the county.
We do not believe that there is.
In fact, I have asked Mr. Bowles and told him to get in writing from the Legislative Council that Senator West is in fact eligible to participate in this issuance. In writing.
We will work with your bond counsel, Vincent Elkins, to make sure that that is appropriately addressed to your satisfaction. We do provide some ranking information for you on page 8, just to give you a sense that the firms that are being proposed to the court, again, not chosen by RBC, but proposed to the court, have significant experience in the municipal bond market, and you can find the names here, but the rankings on the left-hand side of the page go back to 2006 and work through 2010, and then on the right-hand side of the page, just 2010 as a snapshot.
Well, and that's, and the underwriting selection is one that I and Matt, we haven't had a chance to talk about this. A lot of the, I guess for the court between now and the next 90 days, as you talk about First Southwest being number 8 in that ranking, they're a regional company. These other companies are out of New York City.
Strata Hinojosa is Dallas-based?
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
I'm talking about in the method of sale and underwriting selection.
Yes,
I'm clear. Secret, they're 12 and Estrada is 17. I'm just looking at the takedown or possible with regard to these first, 10. That's part of what you call the Texas underwriting ranking. It's primarily because those companies continue to get the participation. And that's the reason you've got, J.P. Morgan's with 174 issues, and Seabird. These are Texas issues, right?
These are issues that were done in the state of Texas, irrespective of where the firm is located. So you're correct. The bankers from New York, from J.P. Morgan, or pick a firm, could come in and do a transaction, and it gets recorded as part of their rankings. I have great confidence in the 3 firms that you outlined as the point that I wanted to make.
Okay.
Finally, on page 9, we give you a quick snapshot of the timetable, understanding that most of these things will be taken care of by my firm, and Ben Brooks is your bond counsel at Vincent and Elkins. The next time that you will see this matter will be on the 22nd of March. We usually present to you at that time in a preliminary official statement, which is the prospectus mailed to investors or potential investors, and an order authorizing the issuance of bonds that outlines parameters that have to be met for us to move forward. At that time, you will designate a pricing officer to assist us in the financing. We'd recommend that would be the county treasurer or someone in that capacity, so that we can act quickly when the markets cooperate.
Excuse me, but just to make it clear to the folks out there, we are building a medical module for the jail. Before we had to take our prisoners to Parkland Hospital, very expensive. And so we're building our own medical module there. It's going to cost $45 million. And we are borrowing how much of that $45 million?
It's $48 million.
$48 million. And we're borrowing 25. And how are we going to pay the differential between the 25 and the 48?
The remainder is cash out that we have available already in our capital plans.
I just want to make that clear, because we're talking about such esoteric things to the audience that I wanted them to understand what we're borrowing.
Understand. The bond issue would be priced and sold to investors on or about the 28th of March. Documents would be executed on the 29th of March, and the transaction is projected to close in mid-April. Any further questions?
Mr. Bell, is there anything to conclude with regards to this report as the county treasurer and the chair of the financial committee?
We'll work with the budget officer on changing the public works for the elevator item, and other than that, I think you got the information we wanted to share today, and give you a report on an update on the timeline we're working with. We'll keep working with the Ben Brooks, the bond counsel, and Matt Bowles, the financial advisor.
Anything else from the court regarding this matter? Judge, anything else?
No, Commissioner, thank you.
Hearing none, Mr. Ball.
It's a great briefing.
Thank you.
Excellent selection.
Thank you. And as always, I'm available to you all at any time.
Questions, but I was just trying to make things clear.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles.
Hey, Einstein.
Commissioner, item number 3, juvenile, 3A, recommends closing RFP 2011-014, contract for non-residential services without a recommendation for award of the 11 proposing vendors.
So that the record will be clear, Dr. Smith, you want to speak to that? That's come through the juvenile board with regards to these 11 vendors. None were found to be susceptible in terms of providing this non-residential service, and how will the department, just for the record?
And basically, we can provide the same services in-house or with our gratuitously with our community partners. So at this time, we don't have a waiting list, so at this time, we thought it would be due us not to be able to accept it.
Thank you.
Commissioner, it's the same item for residential services,
Exactly.
item B. Item 4, Road and Bridge District 1, that item was on your formal agenda. Item 5, purchasing, 5A, that order was on your formal agenda. 5B, recommends awarding RFP for substance abuse treatment services to the 4 responding vendors for the contract period 2/29/11 through 2/28/12. Item 6, IT Services, 6A, recommends an additional 6-month extension to the contract with Craig Morrissey in support of law enforcement systems and the Dallas County Incident Module rollout. This contract will be funded through the JAG grant. Item 6B, recommends approval of professional services contract with Open System Technologies for a senior Oracle applications developer. And item C, that court order is on your formal agenda, item number 35. Item 7, Human Resource Civil Service recommends approval of the National Latino Peace Officers Association Greater Dallas County Chapter request for membership dues payroll deduction. The chapter has met the requirements of Dallas County Code Section 82-263, and this has been reviewed by both HR and the Auditor's Office. Item 8, Budget. 8A, you have your conference travel training request. 8B, you have some public defender staffing modifications. You have additional public defender attorney 4 requested of CDCs number 1 and 4. And you have a deletion of a public attorney 5 from CDC 292. Recommend referring the staffing modification to HR Civil Service for the creation of 1 attorney 4 position for CDC 4 by Civil Service Commission. Item 8C, hiring includes exceptions in the DA, county clerk, and tax assessor. You have heard 8D. 8E recommends approval of the staffing positions for the North Carroll, George Allen, and Decker jails, including any demotions effective March 12, 2011, and authorize HR Civil Service to review the request for an additional 47 detention service officer positions for proper classification.
Let's just for a second, Mr. Brown, couple of things. First of all, the sheriff here, the county in the 928 variance bed that Judge Jenkins and most of us worked so diligently for were restored, as we now know, at a savings to Dallas County of about $1.7 million. The staffing in terms of the North Tower, we discussed in our meeting yesterday morning with Jail Sanitation, needs some augmentation, but we're not going to be able to get out of Decker for at least a period of at least probably the next 4 weeks.
So you transitioning about forward?
We're transitioning about floor, and they transitioned all out except 2 floors. Okay, but there's still some concern because we told the commission coming up on the annual inspection, we got a number of vendors in the jail. We got an update yesterday from facilities, and I guess is Lily here? Did he leave? Womble here? That's okay. We got an update yesterday with where they were with regards to the update on jail mail modifications. And that being the case, we felt as though, because all we have to do, 30 days would work. But this whole North Tower, 47 additional, need to explain it for the court for the record.
let me clarify that they only have 69 inmates in Decker as of this morning. There was an email.
So they did do
Yeah,
it.
they actually moved them out. They're making sure with facilities, quality assurance, that there's no impact on that project's timeline. But at the same time, they want to recognize as much savings as possible by eliminating floors as can be. The way the briefing addresses is it deals with the fact that the North Tower's 928 bunks going online will save $1.7 billion, and it details that out. It also addresses the fact that if you now take North Tower at full capacity, West Tower at full capacity, K's South Tower at full capacity, and then the 3 floors that are currently open in George Allen, that will give you a total of 7,599 bunks. If you treat that as a max capacity, you needed an additional 47 DSOs to be added. Right now, you don't have 7,500 inmates in there, so you're not spending the money, but this allows us to get ready for the hiring. The anticipation is, as the state moves forward with their budget shortfalls, one of the things they'll do is cut some of the contracts with private prisons and or decrease the number of slots that they open up for county inmates. If they slow up that process, we'll increase our capacity very quickly. So this allows us to be forward-thinking, in authorizing these positions, get them hired as we can, and then start getting them trained, anticipating that the population is going to increase a little bit. If the population doesn't increase, then we'll just slow up the hiring. But this allows us to get it into the process and start getting things ready for it.
In George Allen.
In George Allen, right. Yeah. Plus, when the 8th floor George Allen is finished out, that'll bring another roughly 160, I think it is.
Ryan, with the budget cuts in the state and that we know are coming, don't you kind of expect they're going to slow down the transfer of prisoners?
We hope not, but we're anticipating that they will. Therefore, we're planning for it.
We hope for the best and expect the worst.
Which is why this is very forthcoming for us to bring forward these positions.
This will be a transition more than anything. As we move it, as fast as we could, we look at the hiring as slowly as we need it.
Correct. We have roughly 30 vacancies currently, so this will bring it up to about 77 vacancies. On a good week, we are able to hire 3 or 4 more than terminate, so it will take us many months to get there. So, but this, once again, it's really more of a planning process.
But which is part of the consideration that the Texas Commission on Jail Standards gave us for the 928 variance beds.
And we're currently spending no overtime, just maintaining where we're at, so any positions we can fill are a good thing.
I want to thank Judge Jenkins, Commissioner Price, and for Mr. Mills for all this work. It sounds easy, but to get this exception in this, on this, difficult times, it's a good achievement. Definitely. Thank you for the briefing, and would you please, thank you, Commissioner Price, for the letter. I mean, actually, once I read the law, I kind of got the whole picture, so, I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. And Commissioner Dickey's on that, is co-chair of that sanitation committee as well. Anyway.
It's been thank you, Commissioner Price. I must give Commissioner Price a lot of credit for, when he first started running this sanitation commission, we had just lost those 900 beds, and they told us we would never get that variance back again. And for us to get those additional beds is just huge. And I have to credit Mr. Price. I've seen him every Monday morning at 8 o'clock. But it's worked.
So you did do one?
6 years.
For 6 years?
6 years. I've been doing it 6 years every Monday.
Was it 6 years?
It's been 6 years. Okay.
Long time.
Item 8F, Commissioner, I recommend submission of the grant application to the Criminal Justice Division, Office of the Governor, for the Diverse Court Program Grant. And item G, recommend approval of submission of the application for the Sheriff's Intellectual Property Crime Enforcement Grant. That concludes the briefing agenda. Commissioner, if there are no questions on miscellaneous or information, there are no other public speakers. They've all been heard. Therefore, this court stands in recess for an executive session that is allowed by law. All matters to that session. We stand in recess.